welcome to today's session of Scrum to Safe Transition. So, in this session, I'm going to talk about my perspective, Scrum Master perspective from how we scaled from the classic Scrum to the Scaled Agile framework. This you can call it as a case study that I did in my organization, and here I'm presenting it to you so that you can get some tips and tricks from it. So I worked as a Scrum Master for a couple of years, and I faced with a need, a challenge, or an opportunity to evolve as my organization seeks the need to adopt the Scaled Agile framework. So basically, this session is going to shed some light on the few potential issues and the obstacles that you might also face if you are doing this sort of transition within your organization, and with some basic steps that you can follow to ensure a smooth transition. So generally, when we talk about the Scrum framework, few main aspects that we look at is that as a Scrum Master you need to be empathetic, need to act as a servant leader, you need to plan the work with your team, track the work, remove any impediments that the team is having, help the work being reviewed by the product owners, by the stakeholders, and lastly, to ensure that your stakeholders are happy with whatever your team is delivering, whatever tangible results you are delivering. So, when it comes to safe, it's slightly different because here you have to focus on a bigger picture, because safe as a whole is holistic. It's something that has to deal with an enterprise level, so you cannot be restricted to component based teams. So here you mainly have to look on the outcomes, not only on the outputs. You have to focus on delivering an end-to-end solution, not merely concentrating on finishing the tasks that are associated with your individual component based teams. So when you are doing this set of transition, there are certain set of questions that you need to get your answers on. You need to gain different perspective when it comes to those questions, and those are like, why do you need to change or adopt safe? What is that you want? What is that you want to change in your enterprise, in your organization? And if you have the answer to this question, then is safe a scale agile framework is something that can really help you prosper? If yes, then what is that you need to do to implement this change, and how will you implement this change? So these are some of the questions that you should be very clear upon if you are doing this set of transition. And I'm pretty sure that the leaders of your organization who have actually decided that we want to move into this direction can set the right vision and goals for you to start with, and can provide you with a clarity on these questions. And once you have the answers to this question, I'm sure that just like I got the clarity, you will also be able to derive a fit for purpose solution in the beginning, and then later on scale it as required. So in my organization, I saw that the processes were already in place. We were already using Scrum. People were familiar with Agile, but we felt that there is a change that's needed in the existing processes so that we can deliver the business value in the shortest sustainable time frame. Why I said that? Because when we were working in the component based teams, we realized that we are not delivering end to end solution. We are just busy in ticking off the items from our checklist or from our product backlog. And when we look at a holistic requirement, that requirement is not finished because my team is responsible only for doing a part of it, and then there is other team. Even though my team has finished, the other team is not ready even after 2 weeks. So there is a lot of dependencies. There is sometimes there is no transparency when you have to deal with issues with the certain set of requirements that are dependent across different teams. There is a lack of collaboration when again we have some dependencies, and all these things, they have a cascading effect on what we want to deliver in the end, right? So in the end, things usually get delayed when we don't have the basic things in place. So um, when it comes to scaling the Scrum framework at an enterprise level or using the scale agile, we have to first see that whatever problems we are facing, is the scale agile framework helping us to resolve those problems? So here are some of the benefits that you can derive from the scale agile framework. There are many benefits, but there are some of the benefits that we could derive from using scale agile. So one was to deliver the business value in the shortest sustainable time frame. How we can do that? We had a reduced dependency on other teams. When we start looking at the end-to-end solution chains, we had an improved collaboration. um, these two things were mainly possible with the introduction of agile release trains, and I'm going to talk about that in upcoming slides. Then ensuring a consistent approach towards planning, execution, and delivery. Now, with respect to this point, you must be thinking that same when it comes to the Scrum framework. Yes, it is same, but it is also one of the benefits, or one of the commonalities that we have between the Scrum and the SAFe framework. And here, when it comes to SAFe framework, we actually do the cross team plannings, which we called as PI planning session. Then, regardless of the size of enterprise, SAFe allows scalability, configurability that suit your business need. So we generally say that the recommended size is 50 to 125 team members. So that's for one of the release trains. Similarly, you can have multiple release trains to deliver the work. Then cross-functional agile teams delivering working software after every 2 weeks. So when I say the cross-functional agile teams, and the 2 points that mentioned previously, reduce dependencies and improve collaboration, these are related, and I'm going to talk about that in the upcoming slides. But basically, what I want to say here is that when we are having this agile release train, in the agile release train, we have people with different skill sets. So what we can say is that in order to deliver a solution end to end, for example, if you are building a car, you need a designer, you need someone who is probably expert in painting the car, you need someone who knows the mechanics of the car, you need someone who who can do some kind of mileage testing and everything. So in agile release train, we are talking about delivering an end-to-end product. So we have people with all sort of skill set in one single team, thereby reducing the dependencies on other team, improving the collaboration between the people, and then delivering the finished product at the end of the sprint. Then agile release train brings together multiple agile teams on consistent routine for every 8 to 12 weeks, known as program increments. So this is what I talked about previously, that we do across team planning when it comes to the safe transition, and use Scrum in agile release trains, keeping the team in synchronization with each other. So here also we do face some dependencies. So I would not say when it comes to SAFe framework, it's completely not dependent upon any other team, and individual teams can deliver the finished product. But yes, what I can say is that there is a reduced dependency. And then we have Scrum of Scrums to handle the dependencies between the teams. So these are some of the benefits that we could see when it comes to safe, and we thought that if we implement safe, it actually will help us and help our businesses grow, and will deliver value to the teams as well as to the stakeholders. So now how I started my journey. So this is something that I'm going to talk about in a little more detail. So I have kind of divided my journey into three different phases. So in the phase one, we got we got the information from the leaders that we have to do this kind of transition. So when I say that we got the information, so here we are the Scrum Masters. So someone in the organization had the perspective that these are the basic challenges that business is facing or the teams are facing, that even if they are delivering the work at the end of the sprint, the work is not in a demoable condition, because the stakeholders wants to see the end-to-end result, and we are just delivering the things in bits and pieces, right? So someone had that vision. So the leaders defined the vision and they had set up the goals from the organization perspective, and then aligned, or I would say found the people who holds the same vision and who wants to achieve the same goal. Because because it was such a massive transformation that a single person actually cannot do it. So we need to find people who shares the same vision, who shares the same goals, right? So what we did as a first step is we identify the epics. Okay, so when I say that we identified the epics, so what actually that means is, so usually when in the agile world, people use the word epic to indicate a user story that's kind of too big to fit in a sprint, but is otherwise the same and even written in the same way. All right. So for example, if I have to say that I need a website, um, probably where I can order the books online and then make a payment online, and then make a payment, right? So here if I just look at the payment part, that payment part can be an epic with multiple user stories, like payment via debit cards, payment via credit cards, payment via UPI. You have to integrate some gateways, some cash on delivery options. So the payment part itself is too big and it's too complex that you really cannot implement it within a sprint, right? So we created a epic for the payment and then have multiple user stories under that. So this is the basic concept around epics and user story. But in Save, that's not the case. So here, whatever we were doing in Scrum, when we say in Save that okay, this is the epic, it's not the case. Instead, in Save, we define a epic as an enterprise level initiative that's sufficiently substantial to permit analysis and understanding of the ROI before the implementation. So when we implement complex projects, or when the projects are initiated in the organization, there is a sponsor who approves the project, right? So uh, they see that what is the need to initiate the project, what is the ROI we are deriving from that project, right? Similar is the case with Safe. So here we needed to identify the epics as a first step, and then we narrowed it down further, that we basically want to talk about that what are the portfolio epics and what are the program epics. So as I mentioned earlier, that in safe also, we cannot say that we are working completely independent of each other. So when we talk about the portfolio epics are the one that are spanning across multiple agile release streams, and the program epics are the ones that is spanning across a single agile release stream. So in our case, we first identified the epics because it was the base of the transition. And then as a next step, once we have the epics in place, um, uh, for example the program level epic, I could say, maybe that a program level epic is that we are working on a consumption model, right? That you will pay as you use the things. For example, the way Microsoft Azure provides this cloud services, so you will pay for only the services that you are using. So consider that that's one of our program epics, which is spanning across a single agile release train. That means a single team is working on that. Now we have to identify, the next step is that we have to identify the value streams and the agile release streams. So what is a value stream? So value stream basically is nothing but a series of steps that are used to create value, from the concept to delivery of tangible results to customers or the stakeholders, right? So to identify the value stream, the main focus should be on the triggers and the values. So when I say that triggers means basically the features, and value means like what is the ROI that's associated with that feature. And what is an agile release stream? These are the cross-functional teams that have the capabilities, software, hardware, and others that are required to define, implement, test, deploy, release, and wherever applicable, operate the solutions. So when identifying ARTs, you need to focus on delivering a holistic solution or a related set of products or services, thereby minimizing the dependencies on other teams, having the ability to release the solution independent of other agile release streams. All right, so these are the basic things that we thought that we had to get them right. And like we were close to 10 people who were working on these things, and it really took us 4 months to make our base strong, to identify the right set of epics, to identify the value streams, and to identify the release trains. So I really don't want to make this video long. That is why I'm just giving you pointers and not taking the actual examples from my team, because it can go really long if I start taking the actual examples. So these are just the pointers, and how you can look at it. Then, as I said earlier, that we were close to 10 to 12 people who really worked on these two topics, um, to derive the right things so that we can have a strong base. So next step was to identify the core team members. So the leadership team, they actually involved a few members, mainly the Scrum Masters and the POs, because Scrum Masters can give them an actual glimpse of what the problems are, and the POs can give them an actual glimpse about the epics, the value streams, the trains that we can build up, right? So so they involved Scrum Masters and the POs who were working in different component teams and were facing these similar challenges. So these set of individuals, they shared the same vision and understood that this transformation could resolve many of their key challenges. So they formed this core team and then started on to identifying the epics, identifying the value streams, the agile release streams, and the leadership team ensured that these members, they are really aligned with the strategic objectives of the organization, or what we want to achieve with this transition. Then the next step is to create a visualization board. So whatever topics were coming into our mind, for example, when do we have to make a switch, or how the ceremonies of Scrum and Safe differs, how the people will be impacted, what could be the challenges that we might face, to clearly document the vision and the goals. So we created all of these activities as task, and we didn't assign these activities to anyone. So it was up to the core team members to pick up on their own, because we really wanted the core committee to be self-organized. So people were just picking up the task on their own, and then we were having these daily sync up calls in which we kind of discussed, okay, I have picked up this task, this is what I think, and this is what I have worked upon. So this was mainly you know to be accountable for something that you have picked up, be committed to do it, and to share your opinions with others in the group, and then derive a fit for purpose solution. Yeah. Then this was all about phase one. Then in the phase two, once we identified all of these things that we talked about in the phase one, we informed the key stakeholders on their new roles, because SAFE doesn't have Scrum Masters. SAFE doesn't talk solely about the product owner. So we really have to, kind of tweak the definitions and adjust the people into their new roles. So especially key stakeholders means the core committee team members, core team members, they were informed on their new roles. Based upon their current roles, we saw that where they can be best fitted. So based upon that, we informed the leadership team had one-to-ones with them and informed them on their new roles. Then a few scrum masters, they picked up the task. As I said, in the phase one, they defined the minimum sprint event. We came up with a list of, okay, what are the minimum defined sprint events that we have to follow as part of SAFE, and then we aligned with both business and IT on these sprint event, because these are the key stakeholders who have to kind of be there in those sprint event. Then we prepared the team information. Okay, we identified the value streams. Now in each value stream we need people to deliver the work. So now we started defining that, okay, this value stream need these kind of skill set. That is the activity that we did in the phase one. So in phase two, around those skills, we started placing the people. And then we already have teams running, component based teams running with the Scrum framework. So now how can we get the backlog items or the user story into the safe framework, right? So we defined the labels and components to adjust the backlog items from the ongoing sprints for transition. For example, in Scrum, if I am working with a cloud team, probably in Safe we don't have any cloud team. We have a value stream, which is like, in cloud we are starting from order and delivering till invoices. So we started tagging all of the cloud things with the labels like invoicing, with labels like order and things like that, so that once we create the board, for example for order to invoice team, it actually starts to falling on the correct board. And then we adjusted all of the backlog items and then reprioritized them with the product owner, because with respect to solely the cloud component team, the prioritization was something else. But when we started looking at it from a value stream perspective, we have to deliver end-to-end features and the priority looks solely different. Then we executed a pre-planning session, and later on we discussed on when to replace the current sprint event, meaning that we kind of finalized on the date. And then we conducted the business kickoff, informing everyone about the vision behind the transition and how their support would help us meet our goals. And then we conducted an IT kickoff, informing the team members about the vision behind the transition, how their support would help us to meet the goal. Since now the team composition is being changed, so who belongs where, what are the new sprint events, and how it gonna impact the old sprint events. So this is the activity that we did in the phase 2. And then as part of phase 3, where we actually did the transition in my teams, I started off my first sprint with a collective feedback session. So on the one hand, with the transition where I was having cross-functional team members, on the other hand, there was no one in my team that was who was aware of the end-to-end solution. So basically, what goes into end-to-end stream, no one was aware of. So everyone was aware of their part. If the person is coming from the order team, he was aware of the order part. If the person is coming from the invoice team, he was aware of the invoice part. If the person is coming from some interface team, he was aware of that interface. But no one was aware of the entire solution, or how these different pieces are fitting together to form the entire solution. So what we did is, I conducted a collective feedback session to understand from the individuals that how they feel about the transition, what is that they would need to accomplish, the activities that's assigned to them, what are the factors that are or could delay the work that's assigned to them, what kind of support they will need from each other or from the management. So these kind of questions I asked to my team, and I did a collective feedback session. I did received a very good feedback, and based upon the feedback that I got, I kind of categorized the feedback and looked at the um, you know the important pain points. And the one of the pain points I could find is that no one was aware of the end-to-end solution. And as a team, at least there should be someone in the team who is kind of aware of end-to-end solution, because we have to be holistic. We have to look for an holistic approach when we are delivering the end-to-end things. So taking this as one of the action items, the second step that I did is I conducted the cross-skilling sessions within the team. And then I conducted one session in the team where they can give and where they can get a detailed understanding of how the end-to-end solution works. So this is one of the key things that I did. Then since this was the first sprint where we actually made the transition, we set some ground rules before the sprint planning. The requirement should be clearly defined and documented in the tool. So no one in the team is going to work upon the verbal communication. So if it is there in if it is there on the visualization board, that means we are ready. That means we are going to work upon that requirement. Then another ground rule that I set in my team, that is we have to follow a swarming approach. So swarming is something when as many team members as possible work simultaneously on the same priority item, and they just work on that item until and unless that item gets finished. This was really required because people were they were having different skills, so it was important that at least they know the basic of the other areas. So this way the knowledge doesn't remain with one person in the team. They could shadow each other, and they could also step into other area where they are interested to work. Then another ground rule that I set up in my team is frequent code reviews, and they are always working on the prioritized list of backlog items, which the product owner has to keep prioritizing. Then the next step that I followed is that I kind of promoted again and again the Scrum values of courage and openness, because this was a very massive move that we did. So we really needed to know or understand that what's going on the individual team members mind to run the teams effectively, to facilitate the meetings effectively. Because if people are not courageous or open enough to put their opinions forth, we as Scrum Masters or as release train engineers would never be able to get to the root cause of the problem and would never be able to help them. So these are the values that in the phase 3 we kept on promoting as much as we could. And then we ensured, with the support of management, with the support of product owners, we ensured that we travel light for first few sprints, because this was really required, because we have to clear out the backlogs that we were inheriting from the individual component based teams. And we transitioned at a point in time where we were just done with the go live for one of the components. So we didn't want it that all the issues that are coming up probably in the hypercare phase are being handled by the teams who are not having knowledge on that product. So we kind of inherited a lot of things from the component based team. So we ensured that we will not directly get into the agile value streams or the agile release train mode, where we are focusing on end-to-end solutions. So we will travel light for first few sprints. Maybe if we are inheriting close to 50 backlog items, we will probably pick up based upon team capacity. We will keep the ratio as 60-40. 60% of the old issues and 40% we will work in the new mode, and slowly we will switch completely to the new mode. So this is my journey or slowly my perspective from a classic Scrum to safe transition. In the end, I just want to say that if you are on a similar journey, do challenge yourself. Try to learn the differences between the Scrum and Scrum and Safe framework. Try and explore the unknown, and you should be one person who is ready to welcome the change, because if you doesn't welcome the change, no one else will do. So that's all from my side for this Scrum to Safe Transition session. If you have any questions, please drop in your questions into the comment section, and I will try to answer them as soon as possible. And if you want to see some specific videos, do let me know. And if you like my video, please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening to me.